Well, hello everyone. We're just gonna let some more people join in. Hello. Hey. I'm glad y'all made it. Okay, let's see. We have about 1 minute left. So what I'm going to do is drink some more tea. How's everyone doing tonight? Oh, what time is it in your part of the country? Like right now it is 7 p.m. in California. Oh, there's going to be a little bit of a glare. I'm sorry about that, y'all, but I need my glasses so I could read. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this first book club reading. We are going to be reading, NYC 10 p.m. Thank you. We're going to be reading Self-Care for the Self-Aware, a guide for highly sensitive people, empaths, intuitives, and healers. It's 9 p.m. where Miss Teresa is. All right, does everyone have their books? Are you guys ready? We're going to start at the preface. So it's at page 9, Roman numeral 9. Oops, sorry. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Page Roman numeral 9. This is the preface, all right? Again, this book is Self-Care for the Self-Aware by Dave Markowitz. For those who have not read my first book, Healing with Source, a spiritual guide to mind-body medicine, I'd like to share with you that I went into alternative methods of healing, kicking and screaming. I was pretty convinced that what I'd been doing, what I've been taught, was right. But something much bigger than the Dave part of me kept me searching for deeper meanings and understandings. If someone had told me what was written in that book years prior to its creation, I would have quickly dismissed both that information and the messenger. Surely only quacks would claim that repressed fear, anger, and grief could cause illness. But years of experience and intuitive message called Healing with Source made it all pretty clear. It was and is true. Even more wonderful was the awareness that by getting in touch with and embracing the raw emotions that most of us were taught not to show, by moving energy actively or passively, healing can begin. And by understanding the emotional underlying causes, we could also be empowered in preventing pains and illnesses from manifesting or reoccurring. As is always the case, we must be ready to expand our consciousness and belief systems. We are here to grow with the flow. I wondered what would be next, and then it hit me in a most unusual circumstance. I became aware that I can absorb the negative energy of others enough to become ill myself. And so can you. If someone had told me just a few years ago what you are about to read in Self-Care for the Self-Aware, once again, I would have quickly dismissed both that information and the messenger. Personal experience is all I have to go on. I was not and still am unaware of other books that explain what I'm about to share with you. but there's other books now. Since this book was written in 2013, there's been several other books, but okay. um, I'd heard references to empaths absorbing energy, and I've heard some techniques to prevent that, but none of them work for me. And I saw that ultimately they didn't work for others either. I knew there had to be something else, and then it showed up in high definition, crystal clear visions and intuitively guided information for just about all of my clients over the last few years. Just ask and it is given, right? So that's a reference to Abraham Hicks. But not on our terms, and maybe not in our preferred way or at our desired time. But it does show up. All you have to do is listen. You do know how to listen, don't you? Blessings and gratitude, Dave. Okay, so that was the preface. And now I'm going to move forward. What I would like to do tonight is at least get through stage 1. I understand if all of you can't stay with me that long, that's fine. Shoot, I might not be able to make it into that, but I at least want to try. All right, so let's go on to the introduction. All right, let everybody get to the page for the introduction. What is that page? That's 13, Roman numeral 13. All right, introduction. Empath, a person who can experience the thoughts, emotions, energy, and direct experiences of others. Many people identify themselves as empaths, but few know how to use this skill effectively. When understood and used correctly, the burden of empathy can be a divine gift for the betterment of all humankind. After years of misunderstanding and denial, the author was forced to better comprehend his empathic abilities in the most unusual of circumstances. The catalyst was an atypical evening with friends in several bars. Not having drank anything other than water the entire evening, Dave Markowitz got drunk. Excuse me. This opened up a whole new wave of clients. In the following years, over 90% of them had been multiple practitioners, yet still suffered from acute and chronic conditions. Their hopes of healing, their bank accounts, and their trust and faith in themselves, medical practitioners, and sometimes their higher power, were constantly getting crushed. So they were losing faith, basically. No matter what they did, they continuously lost faith in what they at one time believed in. Medical doctors to shamans hoped for the best, but the best these clients could receive was an occasional and temporary relief of the symptoms. True healing could not be found. Clearly something was missing. What was missing is now found. Excuse me. Dave's new bevy of clients had 3 distinct commonalities. They'd done a large amount of self-growth and healing work, yet nothing had permanently shifted their pain or illness. They had an overblown sense of responsibility, and they were all empathic. These clients often wondered why they were still unwell, having done all of the things recommended by the experts. Dave danced on the shoulders of the giants in the field and was able to intuit that a combination of the above stated commonalities were a recipe for much more than a temporary sharing of energy and emotion typically associated with empathy. There was an addictive quality to being an emotional and energetic sponge. The author believes that most of us are untrained empaths, and what untrained empaths take in stays in, which is true. If you don't know how to release the energy that you have absorbed, then it has nowhere to go but to stay inside of your body. and then manifest in other ways, right? So this led to pains and illness that could not be traced, understood, or healed by conventional or even well-established alternative methods of healing. Simply put, the empath symptoms were not their own. For example, if a friend is going through a difficult time, I naturally want to help out. As an empath, I can absorb the energy of my friend and begin to feel what he's feeling. In a small amount, this can be a great thing. It can increase my compassion. But over time, an untrained empath can unknowingly develop symptoms of pain and illness that have an origin outside of the personal self. Compassion is usurped by empathy due to a misunderstanding and misapplication of responsibility. So basically, you want to get rid of what you bring in. Okay? Get rid of it. The author knows this absorption process to be true because when energy is returned to its original source through a method described in this book, the empath heals even long-standing conditions. We all know that metaphysically speaking, we are all one, but oneness does not have to include a lack of boundaries and an unhealthy empathic response. Let me repeat that for the people in row Z. Okay, oneness does not have to include a lack of boundaries and an unhealthy empathic response. Okay? To do so is an invitation to become dangerously enmeshed with others. Empaths typically and often unconsciously avoid certain situations and people to prevent this unhealthy enmeshment. At best, they have applied commonly accepted techniques that the author has found to only be useful in the short term. However, when using these walling techniques, there is no deep-seated learning or permanent transformation. So basically, what he's saying is that some of the techniques that we use are okay for the moment, but it doesn't necessarily release any energy. It kind of keeps us safe, but not really. Okay? Self-care for the self-aware details vastly healthier responses for the empath. It offers linear, easily applied, long-term protective solutions so that the empath doesn't take on or keep unwanted energy. All right. So I hope everyone is able to follow along. Hopefully everyone will be able to see this video. If not, you guys need to start texting your friends because they're missing out on a treat. Self-care for the self-aware documents 5 powerful concepts and simple corresponding action steps. Dave intuited these to help himself and others see our burdens transform into healings and realizations. Empaths learn that their skills, when worked with as described in the book, are a divine gift that can benefit all of humankind. Through detailed concepts and action steps, this book teaches the readers how to prevent themselves from becoming an emotional sponge and introduces an incredibly powerful exercise called Return to Sender that harmlessly gives back the misplaced energy, emotions, and more to their original owner with permanence. All right, so I'm sure that at this point you guys are seeing that there's going to be an exercise. It's called Return to Sender, and you probably want to jump straight to that chapter, which is chapter 7. But let me tell you, even if you jump to chapter 7, you're still going to have to go back and read chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, okay? Because they all kind of build up and then crescendo at chapter 7, and it gives you all of the information that you're looking for. And you kind of might want to stay like with the flow of the book because it makes things a little bit easier to understand. But again, I'm not your boss. If you want to jump forward to 7 and read that chapter and then have to come back and read the rest of them as well, then you can. It's no big deal, right? All right, let's move forward to chapter 1. why we find each other. How many of you feel like the oddball in your family of origin? That's what I ask attendees at almost every lecture I've ever given. And whether it's asked to a group of 20 or 2,000 attendees, over 90% raise their hand. And I think the other 10% are shy or cannot raise their hand because they have shoulder problems. If you're reading this, you already know you are different. You're deeply affected by what others seem to let go of so easily. The hurting of others hurts you emotionally and viscerally. The prevalence of judgments over unconditional love affects you. The waste of lives, resources, and other hurts you as you watch far too many people go about their lives on autopilot, in collective denial or worse. Maybe you sometimes think or know you're from another planet. We sensitives see hypocrisy. We feel what's really true and what isn't. We hear voices driven by ego, feel hearts overpowered by minds, and we see linear and insular thought dominate over creativity. So basically, we see everybody walking in the shadows of each other. We see everyone just kind of living a mundane and normal life, not really experiencing what the spirit, I guess, has created for us. So perhaps when you were young, you used to think that everyone else was just like you were, kind, compassionate, and connected. But soon you learned otherwise. Now we know that not everyone else feels so deeply. Not everyone can feel beyond what the physical senses can perceive. Not everyone is aware of energy, auras, past lives, etc. But we, perhaps always or perhaps only over the last decade or year, know that these things intimately. On the positive side, these differences make us wonderfully interesting, and on the other negative side, these differences lead to alienation, isolation, and ill health that no one can help heal. Emotional danger. Being this sensitive, the intuitive, this aware, being this sensitive, this intuitive, this aware can make us feel less accepted and less understood. In difficult times, we're less likely to find heartfelt, helpful guidance from within the limited systems that we grew up in. We're less able and or willing to fit into the norm. Society as a whole does not recognize who we truly are. And that's why we find each other. We know who to talk to and when, we know who to talk to and when as we seek quality interactions. I think that's a typo someplace. When we enter a room, we immediately know who to approach and who to avoid. This knowing is usually unconscious, a byproduct of awakening, of becoming more and more intuitive. We want to connect with and even help everyone we see, but find that trying to do so is too difficult or too draining. It is overwhelming to be so close to those in deep pain. So we either try to pull a wall between the perceived us and the perceived them, or worse, we turn away. And many of us would rather live alone or with animals than be in the constant presence of humans who don't understand us. And that's so, so true. I know that I'm very, very guarded about who I let into my life, and I don't really share that much with people, even people who are in my immediate family. So simply growing up in a world that is so emotionally foreign and unsafe has forced us to develop coping mechanisms to get us through each day, which is true. I wonder how many of us have the same coping mechanisms. I tend to, if I have to use the phone a lot at work, right? So when I feel people are draining my energy through the phone, sometimes I'll find myself just closing my eyes and relaxing so that I'm focusing on the words that they're saying and not the energy that they're giving off. Um, so beyond those self-protections, every human needs to develop to some degree. This is a world that doesn't allow us to express ourselves as the love we now know we are. Even in the first few days of life, well-meaning parents or guardians attempt to distract us from feeling the sadness associated with our initial separation from multi-dimensional vastness, perfection, and love into a limited corporal form. We learn to protect ourselves from others' emotional limitations and inauthenticity by checking out or playing small, or distancing ourselves from others emotionally, and if possible, physically as well. Eventually, others who have dealt with these sensitivities and those in some of the healing arts tell us that we need to protect ourselves from potential negative forces. The walls the walls we are told to construct are imagined to be made of impervious brick to truly separate, or glass so we can see what's there and still be protected, or a mirror that can reflect back to the person what they're sending our way. And these work to some degree, but they also can block us from receiving the good things as well. If you've been wondering, where is my soulmate? When will I experience abundance? What is my perfect job? They're likely just on the other side of the block you've placed in front of you. Okay. Somebody's preaching today. Called to be healers. We are jigsaw craft persons. We have an intrinsic calling to bring together the perceived pieces of the whole, to heal the hurt. We know there is a peace within our hearts. And if we could only open our hearts more and more, I am lost. We can only open our hearts more and open the hearts of others. We would live in a glorious growth-inducing, peaceful world. While driving with our feet on both the gas and the brakes, we desire this heart opening and other types of forward movement, but are too often held back by fear or illness. We crave intimacy, but isolate more than connect. We desire more joy and connection, but don't always pursue it. And there is a reason for all of this. Oh. That kind of made me sad a little bit. Like, I feel like he is reading who I am, you know? Whether we think of ourselves as sensitives, intuitives, healers, nurturers, caregivers, or emotional or spiritual guides, or practitioners, we all have in common the quality of reading and taking on other people's emotional energy. Whether we are aware of it or not, we are all empaths. I'll use the terms empath and empathic as shorthand throughout the rest of this book to describe this concept or us. If you are not a professional healer, let me stop. For those of you who are just joining us, I am on page 7. I'm reading from Self-Care for the Self-Aware by Dave Markowitz. I'm on page 7 at the very, very top of the page. Okay. If you are not a professional healer, you are still a healer. If you are reading this, you've likely developed a big, open, nurturing heart and presence that makes you a really great friend to others. You always have an ear or a bit of wisdom for them. You are the person that other people seek, not always to talk with, but perhaps more often to talk to. You enjoy being a helper of any type and therefore do so, sometimes to your own detriment. I found that when this common quality of empathy is understood and worked with effectively, it makes our journey much easier. Awareness of this deep-seated ability and the knowledge of how best to use it lets things flow more smoothly and increases our spiritual awareness, our sense of connection, and even our health and vivacity. Sorry, I was getting a phone call. And I put it on, what is that called? Do not disturb, and it still came through, so that is bothersome. Okay. Healing others, harming ourselves. To different degrees, we empaths feel the pain of others. We have consciously and unconsciously created survival mechanisms that try to minimize or even halt the empathy, the taking as our own, the energy, pain, or situation of someone else. But those same defenses also prevent us from fully participating in and enjoying life. Despite our defenses, we still take on others' energy, take on their pain, illness, and responsibility, and are too often sick or drained, or scared or lonely and can't seem to shake it. It is no wonder that we fear fully embracing our gifts and experiencing the immense overwhelm that we expect is likely to result. We don't dare cry out the grief we're already carrying because we fear it'll open a floodgate and will drown in a sea of sadness. This ironically can cause what some call depression, the repression of our own and others' grief that we carry within us. Learning how to use empathic abilities as a gift and not a burden is crucial to our own full expression of optimal health. So what he's saying is that when we soak in these people's energies and we don't release them, like I was saying earlier, it can manifest into something else, an illness, a sickness, a mental illness, anything like that. So it's kind of basically just saying if you're harboring sadness, it's going to manifest into something stronger than just sadness. New skills. If a child has a proclivity for playing piano, he typically needs to study theory, composition, and arranging to express his musicality for its maximum effect, and so that other performers can understand his intention. He needs to learn about interpersonal dynamics to play well with others. If taught effectively, these skill sets augment his abilities and allow him to be a terrific performer, teacher, or even sound healer, learning from interconnections rather than living in narrow separation. Likewise, we as empaths need to learn a skill set to make more empathic abilities or use for the positive and do not become a cross to bear. As medical intuitive reading underlying causes of pain and illness, I've become an expert at identifying other empaths and sharing tools that strengthen us as a basic transformative level. Empathic abilities, when understood, misused, or ignored, can drag us down emotionally, sometimes to the point of near paralysis. They fatigue us quickly and perhaps even chronically and burden us with unnecessary responsibility and ill health that doesn't heal no matter what we try. It is my intention to share tools to guide your transformation into being more emotionally expansive and healthy so that you can enjoy your lives and share your various gifts without fear of being overwhelmed by taking on others' emotional or physical pains or illness. You're about to see on a deeper level that if we take on and identify with another's negative energy, we're not helping ourselves, obviously, but we're not helping the other person either. The latter was my personal aha moment. In fact, even if our empathy is good intentioned, other people really don't want us to carry their burdens for them. Would you want your child or friend to carry your burdens? What this book teaches is how not to be a sponge that takes on everyone else's pain or illness, while maintaining a healthy sense of connectedness. It explains why some of us are emotional sponges, what we can do about it, and how and when to squeeze out all the stuff we've accumulated from others. As it goes one step further and explains how to be so porous that we never truly absorb the dis-ease of others, while still being able to help them at new, more empowering levels. Okay, so this book is going to teach those of us who don't know how to release the energy or how to block the energy. It's basically going to tell us how to do it in a safe manner where we're still able to receive the good, but expel the bad or negative energy that we tend to absorb. Okay. So chapter 2, page 11. All right. It takes oneness to know oneness. For years, I've heard people speaking of energy transference. In massage therapy school, they mentioned it, but I didn't listen very intently. In New Thought bookstores and at spiritual events, seemingly everyone else knew about being drained by others. Many warned me about it, but I didn't think it could happen to me. Oh, ego, I love you so. I maintain this view even though one of my first house calls was a New York State licensed massage therapist. Left me with a headache worse than any I've ever had. My client didn't know it yet, but he had advanced cancer. He only learned of his condition about a week after I saw him, and he transitioned out of his corporeal form not too long afterwards. I was picking up the depleted dark energy associated with his condition. Years later, I didn't want to own my empathic sensitivity. It seemed too new age to me. I concluded that if I could maintain my strength, others just wouldn't affect me. But I isolated myself more than not. I avoided crowds, certain people, and situations that everyone else seemed to love. In actuality, I was unconsciously trying to protect myself from feeling the overwhelming fear, anger, and grief of others. Unfortunately, limiting my life didn't limit my pain. I wonder how many times I have unconsciously not going somewhere thinking that it was going to protect me from any type of negative feelings. I know when I used to live in Ohio, I worked at a state mental health hospital. And there was this road, I can't even think of the name, but every time I got on that road, I would start feeling like anxious and scared. Looking back, I was probably picking up on the energy coming from that hospital. But there'd be times, where there was quite a few times where I would be on that road and I would get so anxious that I literally would just turn around and go back home. Because it was just too much. I couldn't take it, All right, moving forward. I got drunk to clear my vision. What? Okay. I wonder if this helps. After a few months in a new city where I barely knew anyone, I was invited to a friend of a friend's birthday party. 7 bars and 7 hours on a party bus. I hadn't had alcohol in about a decade and avoided the bar scene pretty much entirely, but thought it might be a good opportunity to connect with new people. I forgot how coherent speech dwindles proportionately to the amount of alcohol imbibed. These words I've never heard of. At the end of this night, having not had anything stronger than water, I was drunk. My words were slurred, my gait was uneven, and an odd sense of uncomfortable confusion permeated my mind. Amazingly, in the midst of all the confusion and discomfort, I finally realized just how empathic I was. And I knew almost immediately that this lesson in empathy happened for a reason much larger than raising my awareness of the empathic abilities within myself. I had a deep intuitive knowing that my inquiries about how to deal with this would be answered somehow, in some way soon, and that this knowledge would need to be shared on a larger scale. A new kind of client. After that evening, I began to notice that about 90% of my new clients had done a lot of work on themselves to advance spiritually and to heal themselves of a wide variety of physical and emotional pains and illnesses. Many could quote the best-selling spiritual self-help books, including my own, word for word. Many had tried varied and numerous modalities, but few had success in healing themselves. My medical intuitive readings repeatedly showed me that these clients were energy sponges and were carrying the negative and damaging energy of others within them. Even when doing all the right things, whatever symptoms were released in their prior attempts to heal with other practitioners, no matter how that was accomplished, were recreated over hours or days because of the symptoms' empathic origins. Even consistent sessions with one or various practitioners were ultimately unsuccessful because typical modalities, Western or Eastern, rarely permanently uproot and release the underlying cause. Alright, so basically what he's saying is that they couldn't get rid of their issue. No matter how much treatment they seek, they couldn't get help. My reading showed 3 commonalities, 2 obvious to ignore. These clients were empathic, they had an unrealistic sense of responsibility, and they were far along on their spiritual paths. I have found that when these 3 qualities are combined, it is a recipe for ill health that never heals. My intention with this book is to provide a recipe calling for healthier ingredients. The problem with oneness. Worldwide, many forms of spirituality talk about the reality of oneness. The idea is a beautiful one. The awareness of oneness is a staple of understanding the connectedness we all seek, yet already are. However, in this life, we are finite and unique expressions of the finite, infinite one, and defining necessary boundaries for the roles we take on is not a simple task. Seldom, if ever, we are taught healthy, specific ways of living from oneness. The thought of being connected to our lover, to friends and family is wonderful. The awareness that someone in North America has shared atoms with someone in India or at the South Pole is mind-expanding and humbling, and even appeases and sparks our left side, linear thinking brain. But as either an alternative or allopathic healthcare practitioner, or as anyone who is nurturing, intuitive, or simply empathic, the very same connectedness that can open and expand the heart can also become a major pathway to finding and picking up the energy that creates ill health. Okay. We all probably have experienced and valued connectedness, but when oneness is not applied to daily life in an empowering way, a host of problems can arise. The rules of quantum physics or the microcosm are very different from the rules of standard physics or macrocosms. Likewise, oneness has more than one aspect. We are all connected metaphysically, but physically we are not, nor should we want to be. If I'm connected physically with my clients, I'm going to have a very long day. If I'm too close to anyone without being aware of boundaries, the resulting enmeshment is unhealthy for all. As much as I love so many of you, I do not wish to merge with any or all of you enough so that your problems become my problems. Absolutely not. That's absurd and totally uncalled for. Not because I'm mean or unsympathetic, but because quite simply, your problems are not mine, and it is not in my own or your best interest for me as a practitioner, or even, hey Paula, or even as a good friend to take on your stuff. Therefore, it is imperative that we fully understand the concept as it is and as it isn't, and apply that knowledge to our daily lives. So that's wonderful. I love this, where he's saying how it is not our responsibility to take on the emotional pains of the world, right? So it's okay. It's great that we all are a part of each other in a spiritual way, but physically it would be no good. Thank you, Menifee, for letting her know where we were at. I appreciate that. So let's move forward. Chapter 3. Okay, so this is the last chapter of the night. If any of you are just now joining us, again, this video will be posted on our page, and you can watch it from the beginning if you like. All right, chapter 3, page 17. And it says, but I've done so much spiritual work. Why am I still unhealthy? But I've done so much spiritual work. Why am I still unhealthy? Does that sound familiar? It was and has been a credo of many, if not most, of my clients over the past few years. No matter what their symptoms were. Sorry, that was my dog. Do you need to go outside? No. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Okay. It was and has been a credo of many, if not most, of my clients over the past few years. No matter what their symptoms were, and they were as varied as the people themselves, they either said or I intuited, or both, that they had indeed done a tremendous amount of spiritual work, but they were still unhealthy. Come here. It made little sense to the linear mind. It also... Come here. Come on. Come on. Are you coming? Let's go. Come on. Thank you. All right. Here comes the other one. Let me start that all over again. My apologies. But I've done so much spiritual work. Why am I still unhealthy? Does that sound familiar? It was and has been a credo of many, if not most, of my clients over the past few years. No matter what their symptoms were, and they were as varied as the people themselves, they either said or I intuited, or both, that they had indeed done a tremendous amount of spiritual work, but they were still unhealthy. It made little sense to the linear mind if one wishes to achieve X, and then typically would find out how to get there from any number of various resources. Excuse me. You might read to do steps A, B, and C, and after those are applied, you should achieve X. A more tangible example could be studying a new language. You know there are time-proven steps to take. Learn the letters, their sounds, the words, and then syntax, and stream them all together, and you're now speaking Spanish. Well, that seems makes it so much, seems more easier than what I had to do. I felt like I had to immerse myself in the language of it all to even learn it. But I digress. Most of my clients during this time were doing steps A, B, and C. Some were doing A through Z. They were already doing the right things, but received no more than temporary, at best, results. They were receiving energy healing, often from numerous practitioners over many years. That can't be healthy. If you're going to several practitioners and you don't know how to release that energy, just imagine how much energy you were collecting over time. That's why they weren't able to heal, you know? They were literally just continuously absorbing new energy from new people, trying to seek guidance or help from all these different people, you know? So, They were receiving energy healing, often from numerous practitioners over many years, and they'd visited many doctors and therapists of different types. Many were repeating affirmations, and most were forgiving those who done them wrong and hopefully forgiving themselves. Others were taking, oh, that's important, to forgive yourself when something happens. Forgive yourself for allowing it to happen. Forgive yourself for whatever the case may be. Don't punish yourself for something that someone else did wrong. That's very important. Yeah. Oh. Others were taking herbs and supplements, and many were practicing spiritual principles of love and compassion to the best of their ability, and so on. But they were still unwell. Absolutely. So let me see some of these comments. Yeah, Paula. Oh, you're a dog lover. Awesome. I was trying to get the little dog that came and jumped on my lap, trying to get him to show his face, but he is not having it. He just wanted some back rubs. But yes, it is absolutely. It would have to be exhausting. Like, that's so many people. I don't even like changing doctors. Like, I will follow a doctor because I don't want to have to get to know someone new and learn their energy and all of that. That's like just too much. And you're in a small space already in those little doctor's offices. No, ma'am. All right, a new insight. Most readings painted a similar picture. I intuited and shared with my clients that little, if any, of their emotional or physical pains or illness were their own. As empaths, they were picking up energy from other people and taking it on as their own. It became clear to me that if a client were to do even a tremendous amount of spiritual and healing work, but did not know how to handle the gift of empathy, no matter what we did together and no matter what they'd done with a myriad of other practitioners and modalities, the symptoms of their illness would be recreated shortly after they were cleared. To help both of them and myself, I intuitively began to develop the tools I now call steps to preventing and healing empathic pain and illness, detailed in stages 2 and 3. So many of these people had spent far too many hours away from doing what they loved while on a search for their own healing. That's interesting. I don't know if I would stop going shopping to find my healing. I don't know if I would stop going out to eat or going to the movies. I don't know if I would be able to stop doing what I loved for healing. I would think that I should be able to be able to do both, So many had spent vast sums of money on books, workshops, practices, and practitioners without achieving a permanent alleviation of symptoms. On the bright side, these practices often did result in temporary symptom relief, but to repeatedly use modalities that don't get to the core issue is not much better than visiting an ordinary pharmacy for temporary symptom relief. I'm not against relief, but was deeply grateful when I discovered a way to work at the level of cause-based healing. That's powerful. So it's like saying, get to the core of the issue, right? Don't treat the symptoms, treat the cause, okay? The many ways to mask symptoms instead of healing them. A modern pharmacy is filled with hundreds of products that are designed to stop us from healing physical symptoms. The vast majority of these products are designed to mask the pain at any cost and to catalyze temporary relief from the user as soon as possible. This gives the illusion of being healed, but depending on what's being addressed, we're not really healed after taking a pill. We're told that if we have diarrhea, to take this pill. Runny nose, take this. Have a cough or a headache, take this. They're all designed to stop something very natural from happening and can cause more problems in the long term than what has been masked in the short term. Absolutely. Sometimes the side effects of taking medications are worse than what's actually being treated. For example, diarrhea is often the body's reaction to food toxicity or the emotional toxicity while eating. But it does feel good. But it doesn't feel good. So we take a pill to stop it from happening. Obviously, this keeps the toxicity within. A runny nose is often repressed grief trying to make its way out, and we take a pill to prevent that too. A cough is often grief, and a throat chakra issue coming to the surface for healing, and a headache is often the end result of a chain reaction of tightened neck muscles that reduce the flow of blood, oxygen, and qi, which is energy. Did I pronounce that right? Is it ki or qui? Can someone let me know? The word is spelled Qi. How do you pronounce that? Qui, like Kwee, or Kai, like Kii. Energy to the brain caused by mental, physical, or emotional distress. But instead of allowing the body to heal itself by detoxifying naturally, or dealing with the grief, or communicating or our truth, or dealing with what's stressing us, we take a pill. It's temporary system relief by design. Sadly, the metaphysical pharmacy isn't much different. In the metaphysical pharmacy, we take natural supplements, homeopathic or herbal tinctures, get body work, receive one or more of the myriad of types of energy work, take a workshop, and read books to feel better. Most of these are designed to get us out of pain or discomfort as well. Most are not covered by insurance and are therefore considered costly. But the true cost can include much more than your time and money. In the long term, going to the metaphysical pharmacy and or using the standard pharmacy's medications can affect our health in negative ways. Thank you, Menifee. Qui. While some alternative supplements and modalities are designed to boost the immune system, they too do not always address the underlying cause or causes of distress. Not taking, for example, what is causing the immune system failure. So by design, many of the metaphysical pharmacies, services, or products, as well as the standard pharmacy's products, bury symptoms so they're no longer in our conscious awareness, though there is the benefit of fewer side effects with alternative medicine, which brings up the question, what are side effects anyway? That's the other white milk. Okay. If you take a pill to stop X and do achieve temporary symptom relief without the underlying energy being released, the same underlying causative energy will sometimes therefore make itself known. It may look very different from X that is now masked, so we'll call it Y. Then we'll take a pill to relieve ourselves of the symptoms we're calling Y. The same underlying causative energy that caused Y will be masked by the second pill, creating other symptoms that will appear later. It may look very different from Y that is now masked, so we'll call it Z, and so on. That's an interesting way to describe that. It's kind of like, how, some people take medicine because they have acid reflux, and acid reflux cause, heart burns. They have to take another one for heartburn, and then the heartburn does something and it causes them to have high blood pressure. I don't know how everything would work out, as far as what would happen next based off of a medication, but just as an example, that's what he's saying. Your big toe hurts, you take a pill for that, and now your big toe's swollen, you take a pill for that, and now your arch collapsed, you take a pill for that. Anyways, sorry you guys, squirrel. Covering up symptoms is only one of the shortcomings of taking pills. Less obvious side effects exist as well. The energies of the pharmacist, the drugstore, the distribution network, and those who make design package and market the pill are within all medications. We unconsciously ingest all of that energy, just like we absorb energy of pesticides and of animals that have been injected with growth hormones, antibiotics, and or GMOs. Yes, suppression at its finest. Absolutely, I agree with you. Included in that food is the toxic energy of victimization and inhumane treatment. Okay. Did I already read that? I believe so. We also take in the emotional pain of the factory farm workers that inflict the abuse. We absorb those stress-related toxic biochemicals as much as the emotional pain of the manufacturers and the marketers of the pill. That's kind of deep if you think about it. And I'm not saying don't eat animals or anything like that, but if the person who works in the slaughterhouse has an emotional reaction, either of it really doesn't matter what the emotional reaction is as they're doing whatever they're doing to the animal to slaughter it, and then the animal absorbs that into its body, and then the meat gets processed, and then all the way through the processing into the grocery stores, and now we're eating it. All the energy that has been absorbed into this meat is now going into us. That's really quite interesting, and I something with that resonates with me, and that's only because I've recently stopped eating beef and pork. There was something about it that was just making me like sick. My stomach would hurt. I would be unusually like gassy, like if you eat certain things you get gassy if you're just a naturally gassy person, but this would be unusual, like a painful gas, and it smelled horrible. Oh, that's awesome, you stopped eating meat in 2010, Paul. That's awesome. Awesome. So I stopped eating that, and since I've stopped, I've noticed that I actually have a lot more energy. I'm not like crazy tired. I feel better. My just overall, I feel like lighter, and it hasn't really been that long. It's probably been about 2 weeks or so. But since I've stopped, I don't miss it, and I actually enjoy not eating it, or even having the fear of possibly eating some type of animal's cancer, because with cows, they'll just dye that cancer that's green and stuff red and continue on selling it. But I digress. I apologize. Let's move forward. Whatever we ingest, whether a necessary medication or food, I would suggest that you bless it before you eat it. Say grace, express gratitude, and smile. This can raise the vibration of yourself and whatever you are ingesting, and in some cases can minimize side effects. And no, that's not permission for me to eat processed, radiated, pesticide-laden foods or to take pills for every little discomfort. Some new answers. And this is the last chapter for the evening, y'all, okay? Or last paragraph for the evening. The answers that came to me for healing the casual energies that I share below when applied have been extremely effective in helping intuitives, caregivers, practitioners, sensitives, nurturers, empaths, teachers, healers, and more clear out the pain they hold and have continued to take on from others. For example, a woman who'd been dealing with what she called chronic fatigue for 10 years claims to have had dramatic improvement in just 4 days. Another woman was completely pain-free in just one session after 5 continuous months with debilitating headaches. Most experience a sense of lightness, more energy, more emotional freedom, fewer symptoms, a reduction or elimination of pain, less sense of burden or responsibility, and more awareness of what's truly important to them. While there is no one size fits all for anything, these guidelines are extremely important for anyone with empathic skills. Okay, so we're going to stop there. That was kind of intense. That last part of chapter 3, like that hit home with me in so many ways. So it's up to you guys. Do you guys just want to kind of just get this book done, out of the way, get it done in like 3 to 4 days? I would like to read it in the stages. There are 4 stages. Stage 4 is only about 2 chapters or so. And then there's a conclusion. So it's up to you. If you all would like for me to do another reading tomorrow, let me know. Or we can just do it every Thursday. Give us something to look forward to. Maybe give us like the whole 7 days in between each book club reading, time to kind of practice or even reflect on what we've read about. So just let me know. I am open either way, but I do, I kind of like meeting once a week, like how we do with the classes. So just let me know, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and sign off, and then if I do continue with reading tomorrow, I will see what all the comments are tonight, and then tomorrow morning I'll post something letting you all know what the plan is. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. This book is going to be wonderful, and I know that you're going to love it as much as I do. All right. So thank you. Have a good night. Bye.